Welcome to the World of Horror Special Edition Quinnisode, episode 107. I'm Christina.
And I'm Quinn.
This is the podcast where Quinn and I have a conversation about a work of classic horror in our Midwestern accents. For this Quinnisode, we are looking at Stanley Kubrick's... Oh, I didn't write what it is. Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece about free will and milk. A Clockwork Orange from 1971. Disclaimers for adult language and heavy spoilers. Let's move on to our first segment, Christina and Quinn Chat. Hi, Quinn. How's it going?
Hi, Christina. It's going okay. How are you? Oh, bless your heart.
We love that for you.
We love that for you.
I didn't know that was the gay bless your heart.
I didn't either, but I like it, and sure. I'm good with it, yeah.
Well, anyway, so we're a week out from your birthday. I won't say which one, in case you don't want to reveal that. But now that you've had a week to get used to being your new age, how do you feel?
Well, I'm sitting on a heating pad right now. If that's any indication of how I feel. No, I feel really transition-y, actually. And I've been doing a lot of thinking. And I've been making preliminary lists in my head that need to go on paper. But yeah, I do kind of feel a little bit different. I don't know. But it's all good stuff. It's all like, sort of reflective shit that I should be doing all the time. But I think like birthdays are a good time. I don't love birthdays. And it's not because of any reason or anything like that. I don't get on the birthday train. But birthdays are kind of like a nice little marker to maybe like do a little reflection. And that's kind of what I'm into this year. So I'm trying to do that. But, as with anything that I do, it's sort of drawn out, takes more time than maybe I thought it would have initially and all that. But yeah, I'm just trying to develop a couple of good habits, but also then I just moved a 40-pound bag of dog food yesterday, and my lower back is like, honey, did you just run a marathon? And I'm like, no, I just moved a bag of dog food, dude. So there's that too.
Well, that is kind of the downside of getting older is your body is falling apart, which I do not enjoy that part. I'm against it.
Oh, yeah.
If we were in like William Gibson's cyberpunk reality where you could get stuff replaced, I totally would. Like eyes, I get my eyes replaced for sure. And I know you can get laser surgery on your eyes, but like I would get my eyes replaced for sure. And yeah, I think a new back, a new neck.
Oh, I would fucking get a new neck, hands down. And maybe like, not brainwashing, because I know that's what we're going to talk about, but like, just like a brain shower.
A brain shower.
Yeah, just to like wash away some of the shit that's built up and like the fog and the cobwebs and stuff, like just a little brain shower, brain bath.
I like that idea. I don't want to sound like too Pollyanna-y. That can't be the right adjectival form of that word. But, I mean, I think with meditation, maybe you could get there. David Lynch certainly thinks so. Is that his name? That sounds wrong. But that's his name. Stop making the blowjob motion.
Yes, that's his name.
For some reason, he doesn't seem like a David. A Lynch, yes. Does not seem like a David.
He's kind of a Frank.
Yeah, Frank. Sure. He could be a Frank.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did have to stop watching that video yesterday, though.
It was like 20 seconds long.
Yeah, well, that's also I started watching maybe 27 shows in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
And stopped. Like, I don't know. Again, the brain shower, I think, would help. Or a meditation, yes.
I mean, I would like to think that what Frank Lynch says about meditation is true. And I can't comment because I haven't given it a fair shot lately. I used to meditate quite a lot, actually, but I think I should get back into the practice a little bit. And one thing I'm learning as I'm getting older, thank you for asking, is to not like have all or nothing thinking, to have more of the progress versus perfection mentality. And like, okay, let's say I can't meditate for 20 minutes twice a day. Like maybe I can meditate once or twice a week for 5 minutes to start.
Yeah. No, I think I like that. That's a really good advice, because I'm having a really hard time just starting. And I know that I need to meditate, and everyone that meets me says you need to meditate. And I just know I do. And I did it for a while, and I do think it really, really helped me. And I just cannot, maybe like after we record this, we just make ourselves meditate.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I mean, I wouldn't mind even, Quinn, this might be too intrusive, but I wouldn't even mind if we both had alarms on our phones at like 2:15 and we just meditate. Like drop everything and meditate.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah. My mom used to make us in the summer do drop everything and read.
I remember that. I used to make my students do that when I taught 6th graders.
Drop everything. Deer. It was deer time.
Deer time.
Deer time.
Did you have a favorite book when you were in the 6th grade or middle school?
Well, I really liked Judy Blume.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm on that train. I celebrated pretty much her whole catalog.
Did you see the documentary on?
No, and I didn't see Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret yet either, but I really want to.
This guy just like rode by on a Segway outside my front window. That's so weird.
We really are in strange times.
We are. But Judy Blume, before that, it was, who was that lady? Beezus and Ramona? That lady? Beverly Cleary.
Beverly Cleary. Oh, and yeah, and I loved her. And she did the Fudge books, right?
Yes.
Fudge was, Ramona's brother. Yeah. I had a teacher, my 5th grade teacher used to read every day from Beverly Cleary.
I had a 3rd grade teacher who read all the Little House on the Prairie books, like all of them. And I'm thinking, how long did she read to us? Like an hour?
Wow. I don't love Little House on the Prairie, but I love Anne of Green Gables.
I don't know that story, and I really should. Every summer I'm just like, I know what I'll do. One of the ideas is to get caught up on children's literature that I missed.
Oh, okay, cool. I took a cool class in college, a children's lit grad class, and it was so fun. It was so fun. And we got to read all of that stuff. And then we got to pick a bunch of things too that we, did on our own sort of and reported back, not like a book report, but, probably had more evidence of learning than that. But I reread Anne of Green Gables then. And I was like, oh, I loved this when I was little. And I still freaking love it so much.
That's really cool. I have a Scribd subscription, and I downloaded A Clockwork Orange. I haven't listened to it yet, but I bet they have children's literature on there. And I like to go for like hour and a half long walks. So, I could knock that out.
Yeah. I also took I guess it was like a young adult literature and then a children's lit class, but that was more like building sort of lesson plan sort of things. I don't know. But I remember for one day we had to bring in a book and read it aloud to everyone as if we were in an elementary classroom. And I remember that my professor, he said something like that I was putting it on or something too hard. And I was like, Okay.
Come on. No, I don't think there's such a thing. Somebody else I know had to do that. I don't know if it's an early education thing, but did you choose everyone poops?
No, I did not.
Oh, see, I would love it if you had.
I think I chose the giving tree.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I know. It just was such a depressing.
How to be codependent. Shel Silverstein was sort of canceled a little bit, I think.
Oh.
Not too hard, but a little bit for that book.
Oh. But in the end, doesn't it teach you that you need to fulfill your own requirements?
I honestly don't remember it at all. I just I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I read in middle school. I got sort of on this Paul Zindel train. Do you know that author?
No.
Some of the content was inappropriate for my age level. But he wrote a book. I can't remember. I think it's called The Undertaker's Gone Bananas. And I think it's a Rear Window thing, but with kids.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's the right title with the right plot, but anyway, I got on sort of his not filmography, bibliography, I guess.
I remember once when my friend Heather and I were younger, we were exploring her attic, and her mom was an English teacher, and a high school English teacher, and boxes and boxes of books. We were like going through them all, and we found a Robert Lowell poetry book, and it scared us so hardcore that like we thought her mom was absolutely insane. But then that same summer, we were like seriously obsessed with walking through a door to the other side. So we were drawing doors all over her house.
Oh, wow. That's probably not, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah. I mean, what if that's like the reason that so many things have happened in my life or
it is. For sure it is.
Yeah. And we would just like knock at the door.
No. Listen, don't knock on don't go knocking on random doors. This oh no.
I know.
I'm upset.
Well, I mean, yeah. It was nothing ever happened and we were just obsessed with it.
Nothing's ever happened yet.
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh,
God.
good call.
No, I don't know about any of that stuff. I think that's probably too simplistic, in terms of going over to the other side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but sometimes the simple things are the ways that work.
Okay, I just got chills again. So, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I used to also spend my childhood playing the Ouija board, so.
Oh, no.
I know.
No. Oh,
I know. And my friend Heather, my friend whose attic we went through, she would always sit out, and she said that her dad would always tell her that his friend wasn't so lucky. And every time we played, she would say that and sit on the couch with a blanket over her head. And honestly, like, she's the smartest of all of us. So,
well, I remember, and I hope this doesn't bring up like bad memories or whatever, but after we had a friend pass away, I know that one of our extended circle wanted to do a seance, and I was like, oh, no. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, if they want to get in touch, they will.
Absolutely.
But I don't think you should go like on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay. I know that's not like, like gospel. I'm just saying on that show, if you do something, if you interfere somehow with nature, there's a price to pay. There's always a price to pay. So that's all I'm saying.
My God's
we should live our lives according to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. Or, I mean, whenever we're like we're posing a question of what to do, we can just think of Heather's words of advice that my dad's friend wasn't so lucky.
I'm gonna make a confession though that will totally like undermine everything I just said though. And that is I do readings with tarot cards. So I don't know. Is divination different? Yeah, I think it is a little different than like going and looking for other realms of reality.
Yeah, I think it's more about like help with translation, what you're doing, more so than demanding answers. Like the answers are there, you're just attempting to translate them.
Oh, I really like that. I feel much better about myself now. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so glad. Now say something nice to me that will make me feel better about my life. No. Just kidding.
Oh, I think that you're doing really, really well at life.
I'm working on it. I'm also feeling a bit of a midlife crisis thing though too. Sure. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's so funny that people have midlife crises in their 40s but I just feel like everyone does like around 40. And I got divorced at 40, so it was kind of like super great timing, you know, not for a crisis, but like you were saying before, like an evaluation of what am I going to do now with my life kind of thing. But now I'm in my 50s and it's like, I don't, whatever. It's not really a crisis. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't feel like I'm going to, there are things I want to do and places I want to go and all that stuff, but I'm okay with who I am and what's going on.
Yeah, I like that. I want to transcend to that wave.
Yeah. But I do think it must be like some kind of biological something or something, because I feel like people, I mean, almost everybody I know who's already been 40 has had a midlife crisis in one form or another. Yeah.
Yeah. And I you know, the older I get, the more I feel like people have statistics and numbers and stereotypes and whatever for a reason, and I don't defy those, even though I think I'm so unique. Like, I mean, all the numbers, it's like I fit into them, you know, like a marriage lasting so many years. Once you're past this year, you're probably okay. Well, didn't get past that year, you know, like had for sure sort of a quarter life crisis at one point, having a midlife crisis at this point. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny how those things are just like, it's very difficult to defy those odds.
Yeah, I had one at 30, definitely. I felt like I hadn't done anything yet with my life, you know, when I was turning 30. And I basically wasted the whole year that I was 29, like thinking about what a failure I was. And so by the time I turned 30, I'm like, well, that was dumb. I just like wasted a whole year just feeling like a jerk because I haven't done anything, whatever that means.
Yeah, I had that in my late 20s too. And then when I turned 30, I was like, well, they said this was hard. It wasn't hard at all. But I was like, okay, yeah, you went through it though for a couple of years, dude. Just remember.
I feel like Joseph Heller or somebody like that really wanted to get his first novel published by 30. Like that was really important. Probably have the guy wrong, and I don't know. I think I got that stuck in my head. Like a person should accomplish something, you know, substantial by the time they're 30.
Yeah, I think that I think that too, or I thought that. And I also felt kind of some sort of jealousy to famous people who are younger than me.
Yeah, me too. I hate it like when, you know, there are people who are younger than me who are so talented or so brilliant. I'm like, fuck you guys, man. Where do you get off?
Yeah. And really, I mean, we should just like, we love them and we should appreciate their talent and appreciate the fact that we live in the same, you know, world as them. But yeah, for sure.
And like people I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone's got their shit. It's just like, do you see it or do you not see it? A lot of the times you don't see it. then there's people like me where you see it because I can't help but vomit it out all the time.
I think people appreciate that, though.
Yeah. I think I like it. I like living in that sort of transparency more than hiding stuff.
Yeah, it's so much easier.
It really is. And it's also just not as, shocking for others. It's like they slowly have that realization about you instead of it being like, whoa, you're real fucked up, but I never knew it. Like, I would so much prefer the slow realization than the, oh crap, look at you, and that sort of. I would prefer people ease in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, I don't think strangers know your, I don't want to say dark side, not dark side, like shadow side, like I don't think you wear it like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hope not. I do think that there is something with age that's like that you maybe perhaps tried to hide some things, like your weird, quirky things that would be there 24/7, but you do try to like shade people from that in ways. I don't do that anymore. I'm like completely, I don't know, just straight up me when I walk into a place, which is why I have weird experiences, I do believe as well, because it's like that vulnerability, I think, and openness that maybe invites openness and weirdness. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never really understood it, but I definitely do have weird experiences, and it's usually when I am open, I think, and more myself. So maybe
I think that's true. Because I feel like right now in this moment, I feel like I'm myself. But like if I go out in public, I am more guarded. My heart's not wide open. No way. No way, Wade.
No way, Wade. Got this true cult.
But I do feel like, because I've been with you in public, and I feel like that's right. It's like game recognizes game, vulnerability recognizes vulnerability, or
yeah, maybe. That's crazy. I've never thought of it that way. I've always just thought that I attracted weirdos, but I think it might be what I'm putting out. Oh God.
I think that's true. I think what you put out, you attract. But I don't know what I'm putting out there. Probably like defensiveness, like back off, buddy. I'm just here to get my cabbage. I'm just thinking about going to get produce later, but
yeah.
I just want to get in and out. I don't want to have a conversation. I don't want to know about, that your dog just had puppies, even though that's very nice. Like sometimes I just don't want to know stuff.
I really do.
And you do. You're just like, oh, cool. Tell me about your puppies.
It also just elongates every experience I have. But
I don't know. But we're different, but that's good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Should we get into it?
Yeah. I forgot what we were even fucking doing.
We're here to talk about A Clockwork Orange today. And this is a movie that was directed by Stanley Kubrick. The screenplay was also by Kubrick. It's based on A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. It stars Malcolm McDowell, Patrick McGee, Adrian Corey, and Miriam Carlin. The cinematography was by John Alcott, and it was edited by Bill Butler. It was released on the 19th of December, 1971 in New York City, the 13th of January, 1972 in the UK, and then the 2nd of February, 1972 in the US. It has a running time of 136 minutes. And Quinn, what is your experience with this film?
Okay, I think I've told this story before on the podcast, but when I was in high school, my friend Maggie and I were really into Blockbuster and Mammoth Video and the Kroger grocery store video section, and we would try to find cool stuff, So we were in high school. One day, my brother, who's 2 years older than us, he said, you guys should go rent A Clockwork Orange. It's so good. And it's just such a cool movie. And we were like, okay, because my brother, never really spoke to us in high school. He is not the description of my brother that you have now, but he was, just kind of like a high school jock, funny guy, jerk. And so we were like both surprised and also excited. So we went and we rented it, and we went to my house and we're watching it. And then my brother came back home and my parents were with him. And I think that they were at like this wrestling match or something. And they came in the house, and I don't recall exactly what scene it was, but it was a startling scene. And my brother goes, "Oh, Quinn, good choice of a movie. Jeez, oh my God." And then walked away. And my dad looked at the screen and looked at us, and he like mumbled something like, "Oh, God damn it," and like walked out of the room. And we were like in trouble in high school kind of thing. And I feel like we both thought that my parents thought we were like deviants or something, because it must have been an intense scene or something. And I don't feel like it was a rape scene, but it was an intense scene, whatever. So we probably stopped it right then. This was a film that was for sure featured in my college, intro to film class with the horror movies. And then another professor in college, he also just really loved Stanley Kubrick. So I don't know what theme this course was, but we ended up watching, I think, probably half or more of his films in the class. And then we kind of like did roots off of his films into other films. And it was very much kind of like a Kubrick class. Mm-hmm. That's not what it was officially. But so I don't know. I bought it in college for sure. And I just remember watching it in college a lot and showing it to people. Like I was shocking them or something. I don't know. But that's my experience with this. And it has been a long time since I've seen it. In between, maybe probably about like 7-8 years ago till now. It's probably been a very long break. What about you?
I've seen it twice in the last week or so. And before that, I saw it in college. I didn't know anything about it. I had seen the famous picture of Malcolm McDowell's, face in that famous pose with the false eyelashes. But I didn't know anything about it. And I watched it and I was horrified. And I don't know. I guess I don't know if we should give a trigger warning, for this discussion or whatever. But for me, at 17 or 18, going into this thing blind, as someone who had experienced sexual abuse and rape, that was not great for me. Oh. And I was okay. I mean, I sat through the whole thing. I didn't have to stop watching it or anything. But I just remember thinking, okay, that's fine. I'm never going to watch that movie ever again. And now, 36 years later, it was fine. Gorgeous. Beautiful. Love it. I love the language and I love the sets, and it didn't hit the same way at all. Like, I guess in my mind, I thought it was like wall to wall rape scenes, and that's it. How your mind does that. But this is not that. And there are a lot of really great themes involved. And so I'm excited to talk about it. But yeah, if we didn't do the podcast or we weren't friends or whatever, I don't think I ever would have watched it again. And I'm glad that I'd have watched it again.
Yeah, this time I laughed a lot more than I ever remember laughing during this film. And I do feel like something I read, maybe it was in the trivia, is like, McDowell always had to kind of wrestle with this one in terms of, you know, being sort of typecast afterwards or just being known for this film. And then something he said in an interview, like, you know, when people, it's a, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I need a brain shower. Oh, satire. Like, it's a satire, you know, and it is supposed to be funny and alarming, but if you take it for face value, and I don't know if it's a disservice to put the scenes that he puts in the beginning or not, because I think maybe people probably just turned it off and never got back into it. Because you don't see everything, but what you do see is like the force behind it and the urge to do this and the need and the want, you know, on their faces. And I think that's almost worse than seeing a more graphic scene of it. I just think that it's almost scarier to see that. And I think it's hard to get past that. But once you do, it's so many beautiful lessons and themes and just hilarious, really. But I don't know that I laughed at this when I was younger.
Yeah, I don't think it's for younger viewers. I mean, whatever. People, wojos and cue balls, do whatever you want. I mean, and show this to your younger friends or whatever. But it's really a lot more layered and complicated than I ever thought, and hilarious. And I wouldn't have said that before. And I also feel like sometimes, like, especially when I'm reading reviews or talking to students or whatever, they will like, and I'm not saying that older people don't do this too, but it's the idea that like, oh, great. Oh, sure. I'm going to watch a movie where women are brutalized. And, you know, you're saying this has worth, but it has a rape scene in it and rape is bad. So it doesn't have worth. And it's like, well, hold on. You know, just hold on for a second. Like, it may not be for you, but that doesn't mean that it's unworthy of analysis.
Yeah.
Or appreciation.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a bit of a danger there, you know, going down that road and just taking out everything, you know, because of certain themes or scenes or graphics and things like that. And I don't know the answer to that. We've talked a lot about it and kind of like talked around it too, like separating the art from the artist and things like that, or separating the themes from the art. You know, that's so dangerous though.
I do think it's important to know one's limits and to know, you know, what content you might want to stay away from.
Yeah.
And like, I was just listening to the Evolution of Horror talk about the last House on the Left?
Yeah.
And I've never seen that one. And I've always felt like, I do a horror podcast, I should probably watch that movie. But even the expert who was talking about this movie said, I waited till the very last minute before recording to watch it. I didn't want to watch it. And then at the end of the interview, he said, I would not recommend people watch this unless you absolutely feel like, you know, you have to, you're a craven completist or something.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have to watch it, but otherwise do not watch this movie. And I said, okay, good. I don't have a desire anymore to watch this movie. I don't think I would get anything out of it. And there's just so much other stuff in the world to watch. So no, I'm not going to worry about having that hole in my...
Yeah. There's some things I'll never watch again. That's top on the list. Requiem for a Dream is on that list too.
Me too. Samesies. Also Angst. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I have no desire ever to watch that ever again.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh my Lord. It's a home invasion movie to the extreme.
I don't like those anyways.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so and I know, have you taught this film, Quinn?
No, I've never taught this film. I have been asked to teach this film several times, and when I ask people for suggestions and like leave it open and choose a film that they want or that they want to vote for and, you know, put it on a list or something, I have actually left this off.
Mm-hmm.
I have said no to this, and this is, I think, the only movie I've said no to. And I think it's because I feel like there's that. I think you're right about the age for this one, and I think it is so gorgeously complex and layered that I don't think I ever really understood it when I was younger and watching it over and over again. I don't know that I understand it completely now, but it's just enough to. And I teach Stanley Kubrick, but I haven't done this, and I don't know that I will.
Yeah, and I mean, especially, and we've talked about this before, especially given the fact that we're teaching younger students now, students probably 15 to 18 make up at least half of our students.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't think so for this one. I would not feel comfortable viewing this with a room of 16-year-olds.
Yeah, I almost put a kibosh on The Shining, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of that stems from naked old people, so, you know.
Yeah.
That's my own battle that I have to wage.
We all have our crosses to bear.
Yeah.
So if someone, if you had a student who, or just somebody that you met at the pet store or what, wanted to know in a general way what this movie is about, what would you tell them?
Okay, so I'm going to try. So this movie is about Alex, a young man, late teens, early 20s, I would say 18, right? Although in the book I know he's younger. And you see him from the beginning, with a group of friends, and they really glorify violence in many ways, violence to people, brutality. Within the first 15 minutes, they have broken into a home, violently assaulted the couple that live there, and also raped the woman, right? They also are in a fight with a rival gang where they hospitalize them. They're doing drugs, they're speeding around in their cars, and Alex is like the leader of this group. And there's a little bit of animosity between his friends and him at some point, and they sort of frame him. And he gets in trouble, and come to find out that this home invasion, the second home invasion that you see, the woman actually ended up dying. So he is found guilty by a jury of his peers, sent to prison, hears about this thing that rehabilitates prisoners. Just this kind of like science experiment type thing. Without knowing about it, he basically volunteers and puts himself forward for this, and he does get chosen to do this. And they sort of retrain his mind to see violent images and be physically sick or just extremely in pain from seeing them. And after that, if somebody is like going to like pick a fight with him, he gets sick. If there's a woman who is naked, he's going to get sick because he is associating these images or these things with this violence that they've trained him to kind of be adverse to. And then the end, kind of like the end of the film, I guess, is all about him getting into a vulnerable situation where his old buddies find him, who are now police officers, beat him up, sort of leave him somewhere. The closest house is a house of somebody that he assaulted in the very beginning. And this guy is also attempting to like overthrow these government ideas of like brainwashing, and these ideas that they're brainwashing prisoners and there's no free will or whatever. And so he takes this upon himself to like prove that this is a very bad thing, but also in the grand, in this sequence realizes that it was him that assaulted him and, eventually killed his wife, because his wife ended up dying from this attack. And he sort of locks him in a room and plays Beethoven's Ninth, which is also this music, this piece of music that Alex loved so very much, that was also playing during these brainwashing scenes. So it's also very closely aligned with this violence. So it also, he can't hear that either. And he jumps out of the window in an attempt to kill himself. And the end is like he's in a hospital, broken so many bones and whatnot. And the government comes to him and is like, you know, we shouldn't have done this. We made a mistake. We're going to take care of you, though. And the last scene is kind of like him hearing the music and then also having the images of violence or sex and being okay. And he says, and I was cured. That's a really long summary.
No, that's pretty good. And I haven't read the novel yet. I know you have. I know the biggest change from the novel is that in the novel, even though he's cured and now he has his free will back and he can do whatever he wants and he can be violent, at a certain point he decides not to. And he just decides that to leave that part of him behind. And Kubrick, went with this ending, and I guess Burgess wasn't entirely pleased with that, but
yeah, okay, so this movie is great, but that ending is so cool to be like, oh yeah, I'm done with it anyway. It's just like, it's such a fucking kick in the ass, to everything that's been done to him and everything that he's done, and to make this choice and be like, meh,
And you can sort of see it. I think we should just go ahead and just talk about this movie as if people have seen it without sort of filling in too many blanks. I was just thinking of the scene where he goes back home after being in prison, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And his parents have replaced him with Joe, who's just like, some rando who's living in his room now. And Alex realizes that he doesn't have a home anymore. And he looks so, I was thinking about the shot of him in the beginning where he's like staring into the camera and he looks menacing. And then the shot where he's like, his lips are red because he's, on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
Because he's basically being kicked out of his own home.
Yeah.
And
and Joe just sort of threatened him and he can't fight back.
Right.
He can't do anything that he's relied on.
So I could sort of see if that's in him, if that vulnerability, again, that's the word of the day, I guess, is in him, I could see that character could down the line go, you know what, this isn't the life I want for myself. I actually want a fuller life with more experiences. So in terms of a Kubrick movie, I think it makes more sense for him to end on that note where he does.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like the gut punch. He loves a gut punch at the end. Loves a gut punch. I can't think of a Kubrick movie without one. So yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. It ends well, I think. It does its job. I think the Burgess ending maybe provokes even more questions and like it becomes even more layered, but I like this too. So yeah. And, right after he is released from prison, after he goes through the Ludovico experiment, he is just like, he's calling himself a victim, to everyone and to his, his parents especially. And they're like, well, no, the papers don't say that. So his parents, even when he is in the hospital later and then they come back and they're like, we got rid of Joe. The paper said that you're a victim. It's like, okay.
That's great.
Home now.
I hadn't thought about that, but there's also a line about colors, like colors being more vibrant if they're on film. So I think that's just so interesting. So what is reality and where do we put our credence? Yeah. Is it in our own experience or is it in what we've read in the paper, that authority, or is film more beautiful than real life?
Mm.
When he is most people, I think if they know anything about this movie, they know about the Ludovico technique, because that image of him with his eyes pried open is just so iconic, and you might not know why, but the whole idea there is that he can't look away, and he's talking to us, and as our dear narrator, he's telling us his story about even if he wanted to look away, he can't. He's forced to look at these images.
Yeah, and he's given a drug that makes him sick. So then it's associated with that. Yeah.
And so one of the pieces of trivia that I thought was actually really disturbing is that his eyes were anesthetized for the torture scenes so that he could go through the filming, but his corneas got repeatedly scratched by the metal lid locks.
Why do they have to be metal lid locks?
McDowell, I mean, yes, they could have been like some other material, just
rubber.
Yeah. He went through a lot, I think, physically for this performance.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking iconic, and he's so good. And I think that, he break ribs as well. I believe that's in trivia too.
Yeah. Also, I like in that one scene where he has to lick the bottom of the shoe of the guy. He insisted on having like a brand new shoe, like that hadn't touched any surfaces or whatever. That was the only way he'd lick the bottom of a shoe. I kind of like that, because this kid was only 27 when he filmed the film, and he's supposed to be playing, I think, 17, but I don't know. I think for a 27-year-old to have that kind of confidence to tell Stanley fucking Kubrick, you know what? I will lick the bottom of the shoe, but it's got to be a fresh shoe.
Yeah. That is pretty, I mean, yeah.
And also, the singing in the rain, I guess, was not an improv, but Kubrick asked him if he knew the words to any songs. I just feel like McDowell is like so game for this film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really quite amazing.
This time around watching it, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but my favorite scene is the opening. He's not saying anything, but it's everything. His facial expression, what he's giving you, like what he's conveying. And another thing about Kubrick that I really like and think he does so amazing is those the shots where you have a close up of somebody's face and then a slow backtrack away that like shows everything, so you get an understanding of what's going on a small scale, and then you have the opportunity to like plug it into the big scale. And I don't know, I think that's really a simple cinematic tool, but when it says so much and gives so much narrative away, which I think happens in this first opening minute, where it's just close up on his face and then a slow track back to see, everyone else. And his three friends, they have these sort of like expressionless doll faces. And his face is so enigmatic and just like it's alive, and everything is just on point, and everyone else is like completely blank, which makes sense. They're like, in this milk bar and drug milk bar, milk plus bar. And so it's understandable that they have these blank stares, but he is so alive, and it is everything. It is everything. And that I watched that over and over again, like 3 times in a row. I love that scene. I know it doesn't do a whole lot, but I love it so much.
I think it does a whole lot, actually, because we get introduced to the language in that opening scene. It's a voiceover. We see his face, the iconic picture that, I'm sure everyone knows, but we also sort of have to get accustomed, just like you do when you're listening to somebody with an accent, we sort of have to get accustomed to what he's saying. And one thing I learned was that Burgess was a linguist, and he chose the Russian because he himself had studied a little bit of Russian. At first you're just like, what the fuck? But you do sort of start to understand what's going on just because of the, where the words show up
right
in the sentence or whatever. And we learn that, here's this guy, he's got friends, they're trying to make plans, they're at a milk bar. Okay, I don't understand what a milk bar is, but okay, and he says something, there's a word similar, synthemesque. Okay, that's like synthetic, right? So you just sort of like get a picture of what's going on and what you're talking about. And then he ends by explaining about the milk plus. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence. And so, and having that be the end of, the very first introduction to this character, you're like, oh, okay, what are we in for? What's going to go on next? And then we don't have to wait very long because we see oh my gosh, the next shot is like those long shadows that the boys cast on the drunk man,
yeah,
homeless guy.
Yeah. And then you see like his battle, and then you like track out back and you see him. And also, Molly Malone is in my head now for like the next 5 weeks.
What's that?
Molly Malone.
What is that?
In Dublin's fair city.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because I just also watched the Parallax View, and I do like to make connections. There aren't as many as I thought, but milk is a connection in both movies, and I'll talk about the Parallax View a little bit later, but no, I was thinking about the close-up on the face thing and just trying to think about other movies. I'm sure they all do it, right? Full Metal Jacket, The Shining at the end for sure. But yeah.
I know, I think like one of my favorite scenes in The Shining is like a really close-up of Jack and then pulling back to see that he's kind of just like vapidly staring into the miniature of the shrub maze, and then it pulls you out into the real shrub maze, and it's just like this. And I think at that point too, there's a lot of like cool sound in The Shining, but I think it's that storybook like kind of like this, I don't know, fairy tale like sound.
Let's shift. Let's talk about the sexuality or the sexualization of this culture. It reminded me of 1984, I guess, because like in 1984, the whole idea is you want to keep the police happy. You want to keep the beer cheap, the pornography readily available so that they don't rise up. So they're just kind of like in the stupor all the time, and they won't complain, when you control them.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of made me think of. Because right away in the milk bar, the I mean, the milk itself comes out of the nipple of this like plastic figure.
Yeah.
In the bar, and all the furniture is made up of women's bodies. And of course, when the Catwoman is murdered, the first shot we have, one of the first shots of her, is when she's upside down and her crotch is like right, in the camera. He has a poster in his bedroom of a woman with her legs spread. He picks up, aside from the rape scenes, I guess this is a consensual encounter where he picks up the two girls in the record shop.
Yeah.
And he brings them back. So I guess that's consensual.
Yeah, that's consensual. I believe that makes me also think like about all of those, like the furniture and the bar and his wall in his bedroom. There's also a lot of phallic symbols too, though.
Yes, that's true.
Like the cat lady actually has a penis statue. And the girls in the record store are eating those popsicles. And then, later his sort of disguise with the long noses and then the canes as well. Like, there's a lot both ways, I think.
That's a good point.
I don't think you see actual, you don't see his penis, do you? You see a lot of
you see part of his penis when he's arrested and he has to take off all his clothes and he's standing in front of the table. So it's not full frontal, it's semi-frontal.
Okay.
But you do see like the base of his penis.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean the Catwoman is actually killed with a penis.
Right.
And when he starts like messing with it, she's very upset. She's like, hold on, that's an amazing piece of, art. Like, I love the way she talks to him. She's like,
she's great.
Get the fuck out of my house. What do you think you're doing? But he carries on with his attack and
yeah,
she ends up dead.
I think that too, the nudity, the female nudity, you do get desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. I think that's for sure the point, because one point or one theme or layer of this is like just the desensitization of society, and I don't know, it's such a connection to like the mass culture theory that you're talking about, like the idea, like in 1984, sort of like dumbing everything down to the base level so that everyone can eat it and like it and not ask for anything else. But once you level it up or whatever and people start to ask questions, it's done. Like, that control is gone.
Also, I feel like with the character of Frank, who's the writer and who, he calls Alex a victim because he's been a victim of this like brainwashing. And he's had his, and the priest also is upset about the idea that Alex's free will has been taken away. But isn't Frank sort of neutralized in terms of like how much power does Frank like? Does he have a blog? Like, what would be a blog? Like, I don't know how he's getting his message. He has a couple of friends who are in agreement with him, but I don't really feel like he's, some folk leader. He just has like sort of like niche, but his impact is very small, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But do we think like if he hadn't have found out that this was the same person who assaulted him, paralyzed him, and eventually killed his wife, he would have done the same to this person as sort of a figure in terms of like, fascinating this figure to then blame on the government?
What do you mean done the same thing? Like try to brainwash him?
Would Frank have still locked him in this room and drove him to this point of jumping out the window?
No. I don't think so. I think he just wanted to use him as a symbol of the overreach of the government, but it turned into revenge. And when I got to that point in the movie, that's when I said, is Frank's face, similar to Danny's face in The Shining, because he's got this look of horror on his face when he realizes. And I guess, I don't know if it's in the trivia, probably Burgess's wife was raped. And so that's pretty heavy. And the way that rape is portrayed, where he's like, Vidi this, my brother, like, look at what I'm about to do to your wife. It's so, it's rough.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put it in the whatchamacallit,
and
in the trivia, but Burgess, here we go. Burgess was raised a strict Roman Catholic, even though he has an obsession with the tarot, or had. He's quite dead now. He originally wrote his novel as a parable about Christian free will and forgiveness. His take on it was that to be a true Christian, one had to forgive the most horrifying of acts, something Burgess knew only too well, having seen his wife be assaulted and beaten by American soldiers during World War II. This attack resulted in a miscarriage and a lifetime of gynecological troubles for his wife.
Ooh.
And yet, I guess he forgave that soldier. But holy Moses. That just blows my mind apart a little bit, that he would write that into a novel and then have it filmed.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. And it's not only like, that scene is not only horrific because of what it is and the way it is, and him, especially calling all this attention to have the husband watch while he does it, but it's also just like, I know that this goes hand in hand with it, but like the absolute disrespect of humanity, the singing in the rain, dancing around with the mask, the masks on, and just cutting her, clothing in the way that he does. It's just like, it's the most disrespectful to women, humanity, whatever, to another human being, I think. And it's all for fun and enjoyment.
I think, they've already beaten that homeless guy, violently. I'm surprised he survived.
Yeah.
Frankly. I think the only worst thing they could have done is like torture a kid. I don't,
Yeah, I think that scene's so hard because of the build up to it and the way in which he especially is acting.
And what's kind of funny to me is like the way the parents interact with him before and after his prison stint, because before they're just sort of like rolling their eyes and like buying his lame excuses and letting him stay out of school and that kind of thing, kind of giving him a hard time a little bit. But then the mother's like, I wonder where he does go to work at night, and one of them says, well, he said he does odd things mostly, but they just sort of buy it. But then when he comes back, they're very afraid of him. It's like they had no idea who he was,
right,
what he was up to.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, I think, oh my gosh, Philip Stone is one of the most, he's so good. He is playing the dad in this, then also is in other Kubrick movies, but of course, like, famously, he plays Grady in The Shining. And I don't know if it's a carryover from seeing The Shining so much that I'm petrified of him, but I find him to be also very scary in this film.
Just the father?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't have that carryover myself. I thought he did great, and I thought he was convincingly frightened of Alex, when he comes back.
I think the very first scene with him is you see him and the mother talking at breakfast, about where does he go? And his first line is it feels very menacing to me, and it just calls back to Grady. And I think after that, he's not as menacing to me, but that first line, something about it. And I think it's just so ingrained in me I think Grady is one of the most fantastic characters ever, just because I hope to never fully understand him or his role. Like, I love trying to figure him out, and I hope to never really figure him out because it's fun. But yeah, we should talk about Mr. Deltoid.
I was just about to say that. Let's talk about Mr. Deltoid. Okay, so this guy is sort of like a combination friend of the family / truant officer. When we first meet him, he's giving Alex a hard time about not going to school. And I couldn't watch the the part with the dentures this time. I just couldn't do it. But it's great suspense. Say what?
He seems to enjoy that first sip, though.
It's great suspense, or I don't know what you would call it, but like he's got this glass in his hand with the dentures in it. And you know at some point he's going to drink from the glass, you know, and you know it's going to be disgusting. So, but the scene goes on and on and on, and he's just still holding on to this glass. And then we get the payoff, and then the camera stays on his face while he like processes what's just happened to him.
Yes, for a really long time. And that's right after like the jock punch too.
Yes. But also when Alex is arrested, this guy is having a time, like giving him the news, like, you are a killer, my boy. Like you fucked up. And he's like laughing at him and just like really enjoying the fact that Alex has been arrested for murder.
Yeah. And there's something about that scene too, I think is so fascinating that there's a part of me when watching that, and I assume many people, that are like, oh no, he killed somebody. You know, even though I know you're not like rooting for him or anything, but he's just so believable and so great in this role that I have a little bit of empathy where I'm like, oh no, he didn't mean to take it that far, even though I've just witnessed him do the most heinous things I've ever seen anyone do on film, you know, almost like, not really, but like I'm to that point where, and I'm like, oh no.
I think that's a credit to McDowell.
Yes, absolutely. There's no other. Yeah, you're right. That's a credit to his acting and his ability and his connection even in violence with audiences. You know, I mean, I don't understand how you could make any sort of valid connection, but he does it. And that's why I'm not the actor.
But a lot of people have compared his face to, what's that kid? I always get the kid's name.
Evan Peters.
I always want to call him Ethan. Anyway, a lot of people have made the connection, like if there ever was a remake, Evan Peters should definitely play Malcolm McDowell. And I do see it, but I liked what you said, that, do you remember what you said about Malcolm McDowell's face versus Evan Peters' face?
No, not specifically.
Well, basically you just said that it's more complicated. Oh. Like you feel like it's much more expressive, and you know he's doing a whole lot more with his face. And I mean, Evan Peters is no slouch, but I mean,
well, I think Malcolm McDowell's face is so fucking fantastic, and it's ultimately so unique. And I think Evan Peters is gorgeous, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not Malcolm McDowell face level.
By the way, just small pitch for, I think it's Time After Time. Is that the one where he plays H.G. Wells?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just watched that recently. It is so good, you guys. And Malcolm McDowell plays a completely different character. And he's much older. Well, he's 7 years older or something. Great movie.
Yeah.
Just sidebar. Well, let's see. Korova Milk Bar is named after the Russian word for cow. Moloko, written on the wall, means milk. The bar's sculptures were based on the work of sculptor Alan Jones. Stanley Kubrick had the milk dispensers emptied, washed, and refilled every hour as the milk curdled under studio lights. They used actual milk.
Wow.
To film Alex's suicide attempt from his own perspective, a Newman Sinclair camera enclosed in a custom-built plastic box was thrown off a building 6 times until it finally landed pointing downwards. It broke the lens, but the camera itself survived, otherwise unscathed. Stanley Kubrick later marveled at the durability of this particular type of camera. And I'm wondering, I'm just going to put this out there to cue balls and wohos. If you've seen Weekly... No, what's the guy's name? Wheatley. If you've seen Ben Wheatley's Sightseers, but get back with me and let me know if you think that this scene influenced the iconic scene in that movie. Two copycat crimes that prompted Stanley Kubrick to have the film withdrawn in the UK were the rape of a Dutch girl in Lancashire in 1973 at the hands of men singing in the Rain, and the violence of a 16-year-old boy who had beaten a younger child whilst wearing Alex's uniform of white coveralls, a black bowler hat, and combat boots. And so I saw this in, let's say, 87 in the US, and you said you didn't have any trouble getting a hold of it, right, Quinn?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, I guess, unavailable at Kubrick's, insistence from 73, I think, until 2000, after he died. British video stores were so inundated with requests for the movie that some took to putting up signs that read, "No, we do not have a Clockwork Orange."
Oh.
I do like this. Because of the limited budget, various techniques had to be used, such as dolly shots on wheelchairs, sound recorded live on set, the use of natural light, and some scenes in handheld cameras. However, at the time, the new camera zoom control was first used in the picture.
As compared to like tracking in and tracking out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think maybe
that's
just
cool.
Smoother.
Yeah. There are so many different techniques in this film. I mean, I'm not a film student, but even I could notice, all these different techniques. And they're great. Even the handheld stuff didn't really bother me too much. Usually it makes me like nauseous, but I don't know. I think it's really effective.
Yeah, I do too. I think some of the overhead shots too are really neat, and they're very shaky as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go through Letterboxd and we can talk about some of our favorite stuff.
Okay.
So, do you want to do? You usually do the 5 stars. Do you want to do the 5 stars?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first one is Cure Govender. Is that what you would say this name is? Govender. 5 stars. I'm ready for some Moloko and ultraviolence with my droogs after that viddy. Oh boy. Next one, Flawless Cami. Uh-oh. I'm old. Horrible experience. I love it. Next one, J'adore Movies says, despicable characters such as Alex serve as an excellent reminder that a depiction does not equal an endorsement. That's a great point.
That's a really great point. I love that point.
I love that point too. I think it's extremely smart, extremely relevant, and yeah. All right, next one, NKB_03. Being bludgeoned to death by a giant penis ornament is certainly a way to go. It certainly is a way to go.
Certainly is.
The next one, Iconica. The interior design, wow. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think this should be said too, like that this is set in the future. It's supposed to be, on the cusp sci-fi as well. Obviously, his previous film was 2001, and I'm just wondering. I know it says it was a low budget, and he used these kind of techniques. So then I've read in other places, I've read interviews where McDowell calls it low budget, but it doesn't. It almost like because 2001, I think, is his biggest movie, and I think it would have garnered him the most clout and critical acclaim at the time. And I don't know. I wonder. Back to Letterboxd. Jay Tizzle writes, I've seen this countless times, and this was the first time I noticed the false teeth in deltoids glass. No.
So nasty.
All right. Scalimi says, I felt physically sick while watching this. 5 stars.
I didn't feel physically sick watching this recently. I don't know if I did when I first watched it. I did feel physically sick because right around the same time that I saw A Clockwork Orange, I saw the wife, the thief, his cook, and her lover, whatever that one is. I remember feeling physically ill for that one. What about you? Does this one make you sick?
Yeah, a little bit. It does. And it always has, and it still does. And some of it is like, I don't know. I think it's honestly, there is a consistent tone throughout that just makes me so nervous. And of course, my nerves are amped in different places, like the eyeball scenes and stuff that makes me just kind of grossed out. And then like some of the montages too, I think like in the associations that were sort of like the Kuleshov editing makes me a little sick. I don't know. A lot of his cinematic techniques make me sick. And this is not just this movie. I think a lot of his stuff does this to me. But I think it's also pretty neat. I feel the same in The Shining. I feel the same in Eyes Wide Shut. And these three are the Kubrick movies that I've seen a lot, the most of. The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut, I could probably watch at any moment, any day. And they all make me a little sick.
I think that I've probably seen Full Metal Jacket the most. And the reveal at the end of who the sniper is made me sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paths of Glory makes me sick. I don't know. We just recently watched The Killing. I'm not sure if I felt that way.
Oh, but, that's right. I always forget that's a Kubrick movie.
I do too. Yeah.
But it's so good, you guys. I'll put in the notes which episode that was, but we did a whole thing on The Killing.
Yeah, and I remember something that you said when we were doing The Killing that just popped into my head that I thought was so fucking intelligent. I think I was trying to justify, like, the idea that Kubrick is an auteur, but, like, to me, I'm not sure I see a big similarity in his stuff. And you said something about sort of, like, I think you said something about the men in his films, and I really do feel like that is such a consistent theme, is that he is very interested in portraying or showing, like, men that are completely lost in their world, like lost in society, struggling with what society asks of you versus like your own needs and wants and things like that. And I think if anything, and there's similarity cinematically, of course, with his choices, but I think thematically he's really interested in just like portraying the lost boy, and like the detriment to society that can be, but also the detriment of the laws of society and struggling with who he is, masculinity versus like typical role and rules in society guidelines. And I think in this one, masculinity is very much.
Oh my God. And that, I mean, women don't get to have revenge on Alex in this movie, but the revenge that the men take out on Alex and on his body is, well, and the whole idea behind Frank's plan, basically to drive him into a state of despair where he would want to take his own life. I mean, that's like next level. I'm not saying that what Alex did is excusable in any way, but the whole idea of trying to get somebody into that state of mind where they would do that to themselves is like, and the glee that's on his face when, Alex is yelling, to stop playing Beethoven's Ninth, that he's going crazy and he's so desperately sad listening to that music, and the glee that's on Frank's face.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah.
Grotesque.
I know. And seeing it as an adult, it's like, I don't believe in like I don't necessarily believe in, how you grew up and like what was put on you determines exactly who you are, because there's so many exceptions, but I think it's really hard to argue that society didn't create who he is in the beginning, that this world didn't. I think this world created him, created this monster, but then reshaped him as something else. And it's just like, looking at this movie, I think as an older adult, I just see so much, I don't know, it's so painful, like, because it is more than what I think I ever thought it was when I was younger. But it is like this constant cycle of society is creating these monsters in different ways. Like, Frank shouldn't be a monster, but society created this monster. by creating Alex or whatever, and then he builds this other person in Frank who becomes somebody that would drive a man to despair and a complete loss of hope,
And I think with Dim, it's a whole lot easier to see because Alex bullied Dim, and so when Dim has the power, he uses it, and he abuses it.
Yeah.
But that makes, they both make sense in different ways, I guess. But I feel like it's, well, they're both personal. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's more direct. Dim is like, you beat me, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to try to kill you because you exerted all this power over me. And I think that's a really great statement because Dim is such a kind of a sweet, dumb guy in the beginning. And he just sort of, he's a follower. He goes along with it. And I don't know, Georgie or Pete is the one who says, like, stop. We're not picking on Dim anymore. You're not picking on Georgie, I think, because he's General Georgie. But he says, you're not picking on Dim anymore. And Alex is like, oh, is that right? I'm going to push y'all in the water and cut Dim's hand and I'm going to exert this kind of power over you because you tried to take it away from me. And so Dim is like the worst kind of law and order.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's understandable that wherever Frank started with this, fight against the system, it must have happened before, but obviously the evidence is there that the system is so fucked that they would, take on Dim and Georgie as part of the police force. That's evidence of a fucked system right there.
Right. I think that's definitely the satirical part of the movie where, everybody in power is a fucking monster.
Yes.
Everybody in the prison, everybody, I can't think of an exception. Even the women, who come to him in the guise of like nurses or caretakers, they're also totally complicit in reforming this man into what they want. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that jibes with me. I think there are limits to how much power any individual should have. And I feel like I've been thinking about this lately in terms of people who have so much wealth that they need to hire, servants to help them in their daily life. And is it possible to have healthy relationships with people that you employ, and especially people like who I guess I would call servants, who take care of you and your family and in your household. And so far, I don't think so. I don't think just because that dynamic is automatically not equal. And since that's the case, I think we're just such dummies as humans that, if there's an inequality, it's going to be exploited.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of specific examples where I see that, but all these, I feel like these film scenes are coming to mind where people are trying to explain how well they treat the people who work for them. And that is just the evidence of if you're going to a place where you're going to have to explain that, then you've already lost that fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all the 5 stars.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Lauren gave it a 0.5 star. Bro, fuck this movie for real. I couldn't even finish it. The amount of rape was very disturbing, to say the absolute least. Not to mention the rest of the so-called, quote, plot was just fucking bizarre. I don't care what pretentious film student says about how this movie is, quote, avant-garde, because it isn't. It is simply a horrible movie and a deeply, in all caps, misogynistic one at that. It would be one thing if the film critiqued itself and people who behave this way, but it doesn't at all. It glorifies the behavior of this gang and it glorifies rape, -5 stars. Lauren, you missed it.
Yeah. You actually have it in there, but you have it as the opposite. It would be
Fruit
one
chunk.
thing if this film critiqued itself and people who behave this way. Honey.
Yeah, honey. Well, she shut it off, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that's a larger question I wanted to ask you. Do you think that it's fair to judge something if you didn't finish it?
No. It's
I
just
don't
like
either.
people shouldn't be allowed to write reviews for classes that they withdrew from. Because it's not going to be objective.
Yeah.
It won't be about your experience. It'll be about your experience of frustration and then quitting.
Yeah. Fruit Chunks gave it a 0.5 star. Too disturbing for me to finish.
That's
Frowny
fair.
face emoji.
That's fair. That's good.
It is. Yeah.
You gotta go with that. I can't watch people's limbs being cut off, and I wouldn't go into that voluntarily, and I know that.
Yeah. Vimaranzario gave it a 0.5 star. Depraved filth with some witty dialogue. Rylerts gave it a 0.5 star. This movie honestly just made me feel ill inside. There wasn't a part that I enjoyed, to be quite frank. It did its job of making the audience uneasy and just absolutely hate the main characters. I don't know what this film was really trying to accomplish, but it just didn't make me feel anything than ill, really. So yeah, this will probably never be consumed by my eyes again. I think consumed is an interesting choice there.
Yeah, sure is.
What was that? Well, there's Pan's Labyrinth with the eye in the middle of the hand, but wasn't there an artist that had like mouths in where the eyes are? Well, let's get in touch.
Yeah.
Fairy Princess gave it a 0.5 star. Boo! 2 thumbs down. Was forced to watch this for a class against my will, and watching this just made me feel like somebody was testing the Ludovico technique on me.
Well, maybe they were. Fairy Princess. Maybe they were. I love letterbox reviews from people who were forced to watch movies in film classes. They just make me so happy.
Me too. It's one of my favorite genres of of reviews. My very favorite is when people talk to other people in the review.
Oh, I haven't seen anything like that.
Oh, those are my faves.
I really enjoyed. My favorite was the Manchurian Candidate, when someone was like, "Yeah, this guy made us watch this one, but the old version, not even the new version." Everyone was like, "You loser."
Yeah, that poor kid.
I know.
Okay. So I put some pictures in the doc. Of course, I felt like a genius when I saw Frank's face and was able to compare it to Danny's. But the costume design and the set design in this thing is like fantastic. So fucking gorgeous and imaginative. And so I was just wondering, did you have a favorite set or a favorite costume, perchance?
I obviously loved Frank's house. You know, the first iteration and the second. It's just like everything. I want everything in the house. I want the chair. I want the huge painting at the doorway. I want the bathtub. Yeah, absolutely. The vivid pop colors everywhere. Just gorgeous. And like his symmetry and composition. I mean, that's so fucking Stanley Kubrick that it's just, I just fucking love that, because it's like, it doesn't coincide with any theme inside any of his films, but he is such a stickler for the composition. And it's such a beautiful irony to everything that's going on, because it is a world of chaos and out of like craziness. And if like the German expressionists were to like have their way, they would say, well, if it's chaos and nuttiness and like, you know, all for themselves and an individualistic society, then we're going to cross all the lines in composition. But like Kubrick doesn't do it. And I love it. I love the irony of that. Makes me happy. And I was just rewatching the first part of the movie, and I got up until the cat lady part earlier today, and like her walking out of the room to go to the door, everything is perfectly aligned and beauty. And it's just like, and her house is like maybe an older style. It's supposed to be this like resort. So it's not popping vivid, vibrant colors. It's more like subdued. But you still like see the lines pop. And I think that's fucking genius.
Yeah, wow. I don't think I can speak that intelligently about either the costumes or the sets. That was really great. What you just said. I just really dig like Joe's sweater. It's like fuzzy. And then he's got this tiny little like leather pocket, I think. And he's wearing this like wackadoo belt that's like over his like belt line. I don't know. It's just like, what the fuck is going on?
He always reminds me of that character in Grease that Sandy dates to make Danny jealous.
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Like, always. I mean, I think they're wearing like similar things. They look similar. It just always connects with that character to me. And he's like, I love it too when that whole scene plays out and he's like, well, you know, the dad's like, well, he has this contract. So, you know, we said that he could stay for this long. And then Joe's like, well, it's more than that now, though. You need to be protected. It's so great.
Yeah, he's so great because the dad is like, you know, feeling sorry for Alex and like maybe trying to make everybody happy somehow. And Joe is not having any of it. And then it ends with the mother just like, I don't know, just reduced to this like hysterical, I hate that word hysterical, this like animated crying.
Yeah.
You know, that just like, you know, accelerates in volume.
Yes. And it sort of connects to her next scene, which is like when they're at the hospital and she's like, they say you're a victim, you know?
Yeah. But I also just like is really subtle, but her hair color changes from purple to yellow, and those are complementary colors. But the woman who is helping to reprogram him at the end has purple hair.
I love her, actually.
I love her too.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer. You know what I would have loved to have seen is the dad telling Joe he can't stay there anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
I know. I feel like Joe might be a little bit of a pariah, and a scary character of himself. You know, I feel like he waited for this opportunity and seized.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so too. He's really manipulative, you know, and he's saying that like they've been like a mother and a father to him, you know. He's really great with all the language and the manipulation that he uses. But again, he is able to use his power, you know, in a really abusive way.
Yeah.
So it's just like every instance of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have quite a few lines here. We've talked about a lot of them already, but do you have a favorite line from the film?
I told you that when I was watching it, because it's been years since I've watched this. So when I was watching it the other day, I was like watching it and my mind would leap and fill in the lines. I don't know what that says about me, but these lines were like programmed in me. One of my favorite lines is when the warden says, "Shut your bleeding hole." I don't know why. I think it's because like a friend of mine used to say that from this movie all the time. So it's like a nostalgic line, but like gorgeosity, these words, some of these words like that should be a part of our everyday language, I think are, like you said, just so beautiful. And so them coming together just is like music itself, this language. But what about you?
I like this one. Alex says, "Ho, ho, ho. Well, if it isn't fat, stinking Billy Goat Billy Boy in Poison." How art thou, thou globby bottle of cheap stinking chip oil? Come and get one in the yarbles, if you have any yarbles, thou eunuch jelly thou.
Oh my God. There's like 8 million things going on in that sentence.
Oh my God. Oh, and I love how he calls everything real horror show. We have to put that into our everyday vernacular.
Oh yeah. So Yarbles is mouth, right? No,
Yarbles is balls, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah, wow.
But we could look it up. Woes and cue balls. There is a glossary on Wikipedia.
Mm.
So, any other lines or words that you particularly like?
I do love the last line. And I was cured, all right. The way it's said, his expression, everything, also what it says. I don't know. It's just great. It's great. Do you want to like talk really, really quick about the prison warden?
Yeah.
I love him so much. He's amazing, right? Like, do you absolutely love him?
Is he the one that's shouting all
yes.
the time? Oh my God. It's amazing.
I love this.
And all the questions like, are you or have you ever been a homosexual?
Yes. Yes. You'll lose the cigarettes, you'll lose the nicotine and the chocolate to the government. And all right, handful of mothballs now. I don't know. And I love it when his first interaction, like going through his packets and stuff, and he's like, put it back on the table nicely. And it just changes their whole dynamic. Like, it's just so great. Just screaming everything. He's the one that says, shut your bleeding bile or shut your bleeding hole. And it's so Full Metal Jacket. Like, it's so such a call to that. And that kind of, that group being portrayed in that manner, which I think is great. Like, it's beautifully done.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's such a stupid way to get power, is to yell at somebody, but I feel like I've had so many, like, people, not just men, but I feel like I've had people in my life who've been in positions of authority just, like, use, like, a loud voice on me as a form of intimidation or something. It's so stupid. And he just, like, seems like such a clown.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he does have power over Alex in that moment. He's got to do what he says. Yeah,
absolutely. It is cool to, like, kind of chart the way that these characters wield their power and the ways in which they, like, they're the device in which they do it. Like him, it's yelling, it's quick, short sentences. But yeah, it is kind of like, to think about being yelled at as an adult by another adult it's just crazy. I was yelled at by someone that we work with, like, when I first started there. And I just was like, I could not believe I was yelled at by an adult as an adult in this manner at my workplace, and it was just a crazy experience. And, like, this person has apologized many times since, but I mean, it's unbelievable that that's like a go-to for some, but I don't know. Or for a lot of people, I guess.
I think it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, this is probably TMI. Sometimes I worry that I say too much on this podcast, but I mean, I used to yell in my marriage. I mean, we yelled at each other, but the first time I raised my voice at my boyfriend, he's like, can you lower your voice, please? And it was just, like, so gentle and so calm. And I was like, oh, like, that's an option? Like, I had just, for 14 years been in this mode of, like, when you get upset, you yell real loud, you know? And here somebody was saying, no, we can talk, but let's keep it low. I was like, whoa.
A healthy relationship. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm saying too much too, but in my marriage as well, I think my go-to was to yell. I have only yelled at people that I have a very deep relationship with. Like, I feel like I've yelled at, my ex-husband for sure, my dad for sure, my brother for sure. I don't know that I've yelled at women though, which is really interesting. I feel like, wow, light bulb moment. Like the way that you have to, like the tool you have to use sometimes in a relationship with a man is that. Like you have to pull out your big guns or something. I don't know that I've yelled at my mom. And I mean, have I felt similarly about her than I have with my dad at certain times? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know that I've ever yelled at her.
Huh. Trying to think if I ever yelled at my mom. I think so.
Yeah, maybe I have too, but
I mean, you have a nicer relationship with your mom than I had with my mom, but yeah, I think so. But again, I think it was just a tool, like a very unsophisticated tool that I would pull out, and I can't remember the last time I yelled at somebody. Can you?
It was probably my dad.
I kind of yelled at my class one time recently, so that was not a beautiful moment, but
I think that's a little different because at times I think like the tool of yelling is used properly because there might be chaos and confusion and nuts going on, like, so you have to reach a different level to like get there. But because I've done it too. I mean, I remember having a class like within my first few years of teaching that like I could not keep their attention. And then I had to say, I yelled, I tried yelling, that didn't work. I tried turning off the lights. I had to start writing their names on the board and putting checks by them, and that worked. But that was like, I had to ask my mom, who was an elementary special ed teacher for 37 years, some of her tools. She's the one that was like, turn off the lights, put their names on the board, put checks by them. Don't do anything with it, but just do it. They'll be like worried. She's right.
Yeah, that is true. I think I had a dream about that last night, but yeah, I saw a TikTok or something of this guy who's got like a whole bunch of attention getters, and it's kind of like call and response. I can't remember any of them right now, but they were so clever. I'm like, ooh, I want to try these. Ooh. I used to do stuff like that, like snaps and like, I haven't done that kind of stuff in a while, but it might be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Quinn, would you recommend this movie?
Absolutely. I would. I don't know. I still don't know that I would. I feel like I'm elevating this into a much higher level right now that I should be. But I think like since our conversation and since this really, previous viewing, that I just see it as a more important piece than I saw it initially. I always had an affinity for it, and I liked what was happening and like cinematically really appreciated it. But I feel like thematically and what it's doing is just, I don't know. I feel like it's elevated to me now. So I maybe like would even consider teaching it, but I don't know. That would probably that'd be tough. But I would absolutely recommend it to people. But I think that I would probably do like a trigger warning, because within the first 15 minutes, if you're not prepared for what's coming, you could get very, very jarred and turn it off. And I understand those reviewers that say that they have to stop and things like that. And I get it. And I respect that. I don't respect viewers that stopped and still rated it as like garbage, because it is garbage, but what about you? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I was trying to think who I'd recommend it to. I guess Mac, because I don't think Mac's seen it before, but I would definitely give it a trigger warning. I feel like when I give him trigger warnings though, he's kind of like, oh yeah, like I've seen some stuff, Mom. But I mean, I would recommend it to Mac. I would like to get his thoughts on it, like as a 27-year-old.
Yeah, I would too.
Person living in this time, and like I would really be interested.
Yeah, I don't think I am interested in anyone's opinion unless they get through the whole film for sure. But yeah, I'm so interested in Mac's opinions, regardless of if he gets through it or not. But I'm interested anyways. I think that it is a bit long for him, but
oh, that's a really good point. Yeah.
But I don't know that he could dive into Kubrick without being okay with that.
Yeah, that's true. And he's just sort of on this tear lately where he's like against Hitchcock and against Kubrick and, against abusive directors in general. So might be a little bit of a tough sell, but I do think it's worth it. And I mean, if Mac watches it or he doesn't watch it, I would still recommend it to the cue ball and WoHo community at large.
Yeah.
If you can handle it. Now, listen. The rape scene is difficult to watch. It should be difficult to watch. But if you have any triggers around that content, don't.
Yeah.
Don't watch it or skip to like minute 20 or something. I mean, I don't know. I think it did trigger me when I was too young to watch it.
Yeah. And I feel like I remember it showing much more graphic detail than it does, but the build up to it is so horrendous that it just becomes like, it is bad because of the treatment and the, just dehumanization. And
it's like, what's the fuck the name? What's that Quentin Tarantino movie with the bank robbers? With Tim Roth and
oh my god, yeah, where they all meet in the warehouse, Mr. Q and Pink and
Mr. Pink and okay. Well, anyway, there's a scene in there where Michael Marsden cuts off the ear of a cop, but we never see it. But in my mind, I saw it.
Yes.
And when I watched it again, I'm like, oh, no, I can't watch this part. You don't see it. It's off camera.
Yeah. And you don't see the rape, and you don't see the Catwoman being bashed with the penis. You see that part is, we didn't talk about this, but that part right then is visually very cool. And it has no connection to anything else, but it's almost like comic book graphic novel, like pow bang, right after that, the visual. But yeah, I remember seeing all these things, but they're never there. We've never seen them.
Well, it's like I said earlier, I thought in my memory, this was just wall to wall rapes, and it's not, but I don't want to lessen. I mean, I don't want to diminish the impact of these scenes because they had a profound impact on me, and I'm sure many other viewers. So just, I guess, viewer beware.
Yeah, I had a hard time making it through this time, the first 15 minutes, and I've seen it a lot of times. And like I said, I did remember things more graphic and more vivid, but it doesn't matter. I still had a hard time getting through it this time. So absolutely, that warning is legit, and he's doing something, and he's not showing a lot, but what he is alluding to and building up to is very powerful.
Well, thank you, Quinn, for having this conversation with me about A Clockwork Orange.
Thank you.
And thank you, Wohos and Cue Balls, for joining us for this special edition Quinnisode. Next time on the Quinnisode, Quinny and I will be looking at Strangers on a Train. Coming up very soon, Stefan McDonald-LaBelle from the Drag Mitch to Hell podcast will be joining me on the world of foundational horror to discuss Mario Bava's A Bay of Blood. Next time on the main show, Mac and I will be looking at anthology movies. We will be reviewing 3 Extremes from Asia and the original VHS from the US. We would love it if you subscribed and left us a nifty 5-star rating, but we'd be just as happy if you told all your friends all about us. On that, a shout out to WOHOs in various area codes. The last Quinnisode was downloaded in the US, Germany, Canada, India, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. If you would like a specific shout out, please get in touch. Remember, cue balls, we love you, and don't go into the basement.
Yay.
How about that?
That was fun.
WOHOs, this is Christina. I'm here to talk to you about the Parallax View, which is not a horror film, which is probably better described as a thriller. And it's a movie that I've watched more times than I can count, and I really love it a lot. And I think there are 3 connections, you can decide how solid they are, between A Clockwork Orange and the Parallax View. But let me get into the stats first. This was directed by Alan J. Pakula. The screenplay is by David Geiler and Lorenzo Semple Jr. It's based on The Parallax View by Lauren Singer, and it stars Warren Beatty, Paula Prentiss, Hume Cronin, William Daniels, Kenneth Mars, Walter McGinn, Kelly Thordson, and Jim Davis. The cinematography was by Gordon Willis, and it was edited by John W. Wheeler. The release date was June 14th, 1974, and I'm recording this on the 13th, so that's a nice coincidence. It has a running time of 102 minutes. So I really wish that I could do a Stefan from SNL impression, because to me, this film has everything. We've got a bar fight, a scary confrontation with a small town sheriff, a very young, probably gay William Daniels, a boat explosion, a bomb threat, a fantastic musical rehearsal, an odd jangly score, which hints at American patriotism but is slightly off, a fantastic cast, including Jim Davis, the cocky but ultimately unfortunate victim at the end of the film. And we are left with unanswered questions about who the Parallax Corporation is, what their motives are, and if they targeted Frady from jump. So I'm not going to talk about the film in terms of going beat by beat through the plot. I wanted to talk about some things that I love about it and some connections that I thought were there. One of the connections is the characters of the writer in A Clockwork Orange and Joe, played by Warren Beatty, in The Parallax View. They both want to get the truth out, and they're both ultimately extremely ineffective. And in Joe's case, he's completely neutralized and is not allowed to report on what he's found. The other connection, it's kind of a silly one. It has to do with milk. In A Clockwork Orange, the boys drink some milk laced with drugs so they can go and do a bit of the ultra violence. In The Parallax View, Joe is an alcoholic, and so when he goes into this bar, he orders a glass of milk, and that causes the confrontation and ultimately the bar fight with a very sort of toxic male sheriff who calls Joe a girl, and so that's just sort of a silly connection there. And I guess the main connection has to do with viewing images in these 2 different contexts. So in A Clockwork Orange, the idea is to use aversion therapy to make sure that Alex does not enjoy violence anymore. And in The Parallax View, it's different. It's a form of trying to indoctrinate young, sort of aimless men into becoming assassins for the Parallax Corporation in their division of human engineering. They're trying to engineer the perfect assassin, or at least an assassin who will perfectly do the job that they want. And we originally wanted to do, this is just me. I originally wanted to do this film because when we looked at Kill List, the director of that, Ben Wheatley, had said that he thought that Kill List was more akin to the Parallax View than The Wicker Man. A lot of people wanted to make the connection to The Wicker Man, but if you look at both films, it's easy to see that both involve a character who gets caught up in something much, much bigger than they could ever imagine, and they both fall victim to that entity. And yeah, it looked at in that way, I can definitely see the connection. I don't know where I discovered this film. Been racking my brain for days trying to figure out why I like this movie so much. And that's just a personal thing. It's not perfect. It actually has a lot of problems. All the pieces do not add up. And sometimes that really frustrates me. And for whatever reason, it doesn't in this case. I'm pretty sure if my husband didn't show me, my ex-husband didn't show me this film, it was my dad. And I kind of think it was my dad because I feel like I've loved this film just, for years and years. So I'm not sure, it doesn't ultimately matter. I don't remember the first time I watched it, and I don't know how many times I've seen it, but I would watch it, anytime. I just really love it. It is from early 70s, so, we're talking really long hair on Warren Beatty. So I really like that. That's like super nostalgic. The film is kind of mostly praised for the cinematography, which is incredible. It's amazing what the cinematographer does with this film. And I saw a short little interview with Gordon Willis, and he pointed out that he loves playing with space. So when he's first setting up a shot, he just sort of, looks at the space and what he wants to do with it. And he was talking about the final scene where the candidate played by Jim Davis is assassinated by a sniper, seemingly, and he's driving a golf cart in this huge warehouse area. And as he dies, the golf cart just sort of moves in this like very slow parabola, and it just sort of drives into these perfectly positioned tables, which all have different tablecloths of like red, white, and blue on them. And it's shot from really far away, and a lot of the shots are like that. He used an anamorphic lens, and he frequently has the subject of a close-up off center, so the viewer has to calculate sort of where to look in the frame. And he also mentions that he loves shooting through windows, and we see Joe frequently looking at others through windows. We often see Joe from a distance or in shadows, and there's also a lot of inaudible conversation, so that all just sort of contributes to the feeling of paranoia that Joe has. Joe has 2 or 3 aliases in the film. I like that small detail. He's a deeply flawed person who not only is dealing with or not dealing with his alcoholism, but also dealing with extreme anger and violence that comes out in a couple of scenes. There are some highlights for me. The silent scene on the top of the Space Needle in the very beginning. Of course, the brainwashing scene, which is almost in the middle of the movie. And what's different from A Clockwork Orange is we look at the images, there's almost like 5 minutes, which for Americans would be images that are close to our heart, like literally apple pie, mom, and the feeling of holding hands with a beautiful girl, walking down a trail in the woods, all these kind of like very comforting feelings. And they're intercut with pictures of Hitler and pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald and images of lynchings and things like that. So it sort of sets up the positive and then the negative images, and then they're intercut in this way that it is very uncomfortable. The first time you watch it, I think most people feel pretty uncomfortable. And I think one of the smart things that Pakula did with this is that he never cuts back to Warren Beatty. So it's like we are also getting a feeling of what the Parallax Corporation is possibly up to, maybe. But that feeling of discomfort is pretty real. You can look up the scene itself if you're not interested in watching the entire film. It's more powerful in context, of course, but if you're interested, it's just kind of an interesting piece of filmmaking. And there is also a 12-minute silent scene during which Frady follows a man, finds himself on a jumbo jet, realizes that there is a bomb on board. And then after that, he's trying to find a way to get a message out to the stewards on the stewards on the plane. And it's a almost incredible scene. Hard to believe that it's actually happening. And one time when I was watching it, I'm like, is this in his imagination? But anyway, I think that it is worth your time. Beatty has been criticized as being kind of lackluster, but I don't think that I didn't get that vibe. I think he does a great job. He's a man who is dealing with difficulties in his career and in his love life, and like I said, he has a lot of personal demons. But I buy it. I don't know. It's not a problem for me. Here's a little bit of trivia. A parallax refers to the difference in perspective of an object when seen from different viewpoints. This is one of a trilogy of thrillers directed by Alan J. Pakula, along with Clute from 1971 and All the President's Men from 1976. This was the only one not released by Warner Brothers Pictures and the only one not to win any Academy Awards or nominations, which to me is a crime. Though Beatty and Earl Hindman are fighting in the bar as Joe and Deputy Red, respectively, the real person skilled in hand-to-hand combat is the woman playing Gail the waitress, Doria Cook Nelson, who studied martial arts for over 40 years. Alan J. Pakula asked for an empty banquet room for the final scene in order to increase the nightmarish mood. The producers complied, possibly because it saved them the cost of background actors. There's a scene where Frady is standing in the rafters of the school gymnasium, waiting for the assassination as the band slowly plays to a certain musical cue. Some consider this a ripoff of the ending of Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1956, even though it ends very differently. Who's get in touch. Let me know what you think. Here are a couple of Letterboxd reviews, some from guests who have appeared on the podcast, Certified Wohos, and Friends of the Pod. Eric Winnick gave the Parallax View 3.5 stars. It holds up. You know, you can feel it the moment this film goes off the rails, and you just sit there amazed by the audacity of it. The wonder that Pakula got away with what is almost, sort of, maybe an art film in the midst of a mainstream picture. Whomever greenlit this thing, Evans, either didn't see it coming or thought he was getting something entirely different. Did Beatty have any idea what was going on, especially in the last 15 minutes? Or was he just running from place to place, hoping Pakula would make sense of it all? Someone point me to a making of book/story/video, please. I think Beatty had a pretty collaborative relationship with Pakula. That's my understanding. Devin Amadia gave it also 3.5 stars. I love when 70s movies use zero music during the big action set pieces. So do I, Devin. Matt Lynch gave it 4 stars. Ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Connor gave it 5 stars. Quite possibly my favorite parapolitics paranoiac film. Alhambra gave it 5 stars. The most beautifully shot, most patiently paced, most thrillingly paranoid Warren Beatty smoke show you'll see all week. Morg coffin emoji, spiderweb emoji gave it 5 stars. I don't think a film like this could be made today. Something about the 70s conspiracy thrillers just can't be touched now. This film is absolutely chilling at times. The brainwashing sequence is one of the finest and scariest things put on film. There's just so much subtext and history behind it that could require hours of discussion. Fantastic film. Dave Holloway gave it 5 stars. That's some Billy Brass balls filmmaking right there. This film is so well directed, it makes my teeth hurt. And that Gordon Willis cinematography is fucking lush. God damn, the poise and the certainty Pakula had in making this film. The confidence required to put that full indoctrination sequence slap bang in the middle. Fuck, this must have been good to see at the cinema first time around. Yeah, I believe this was Pakula's 4th film, so it is quite impressive. Not everybody loved this film, though. Amy Woolsey gave it 1.5 stars. I thought this was supposed to be a political thriller, but it provides neither political commentary nor thrills. The only reason I give it more than 1 star is the production design and Gordon Willis's cinematography, which makes the climax seem more ominous than it actually is. I actually think the climax is one of my favorite parts. After Beatty has witnessed the assassination of another presidential candidate, and he understands that he is quite possibly in the same area. It's very Manchurian Candidate. I don't know what you call that, the area that's above like a stadium or a warehouse or something, but that's where he is, and he believes that he's up there quite possibly with the killer. And so he's moving extremely slowly, and we see him again from a distance, and we just see his little body in between the platform where he is and the roof of the building, and he's just trying to move as silently as he can, and you know, he's got his head on a swivel, like trying to figure out what to do next. And to me, it's pretty ominous. James Barrett Evans gave it 1.5 stars. For a political thriller, this sure wasn't very political. It has a really strong start, and then it just nosedives. It's a very straightforward film, and a very boring one at that. The most interesting thing about this film was just being able to board a plane and pay a fare like you would on a bus. Air travel was just different back then. Dustin Titcomb gave it 1.5 stars. I seriously underrated The Manchurian Candidate after having seen this. It's possible there's a better film hidden here, but the editing actively gets in the way of making this enjoyable. Definitely part of the Criterion worst of list. Abby gave it 1.5 stars. This is no Clute. Almost quit right before the bug nuts testing montage, which was really the highlight. Gorgeously shot, indescribably boring. No characters to speak of. The parallax stuff threatens to be interesting, but really fizzles. Super generic 70s conspiracy thriller. Still, does look cool as fuck. Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody. I think if you like thrillers and political thrillers and those that are set in the 70s, and or you like seeing these actors that you know, like Paula Prentiss is in the film for about, I don't know, 15 minutes or something like that, and she was just so fantastic in the Stepford Wives, and so to see her again, to me, it was like seeing a friend. And of course, Warren Beatty. A lot of people might have only discovered him in the 80s or later, so to see him a little earlier, I think is a treat. And William Daniels, oh my goodness, he was like this character actor on like television. That's kind of how I knew him. And Jim Davis too. So to see them as sort of these younger, you know, earlier on in their careers, I think is really fun. If you do give it a shot, let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts on this and on any other films you think we should cover on the podcast or on this series, The World of Foundational Horror. Until next time, Wohos, remember, we love you, and don't go into the basement.